Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Invictus Racing League, the IRL F3 League. Tonight we are joined by my good friend Charlie. Charlie, mate, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. And it's as always a pleasure to be here and watching this great racing we have here in F3. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
My name is Harry, and of course we do every night on a Wednesday at 8 p.m. unparalleled with the F2 League, and the guys are just about ready to get round 9 underway. And of course we come up into round 9, the Canada circuit, the Jules Villeneuve circuit, of course named after the late 19 of course died in 1982, one of the all-time great drivers, and of course his son went on to win the championship in 1997. Of course one of the most historic tracks, and of course the infamous Wall of Champions, one of the most well-known and iconic corners on the entire F1 calendar. And in terms of racing, Charlie, this is from what we've seen on Monday night and Tuesday night, this can really be a real exciting one to potentially come ahead and watch, because it does really allow some really good racing.
Yeah, of course, as yourself and I well know, we had a titanic battle here on Monday that went on for 1.5 whole sort of race stints, more than half of the race. So yeah, it's a great track for racing. You've got a good overtaking opportunity down into the hairpin, and obviously there you've got your DRS detection as well for that long back straight. So yeah, it does provide some really good racing, this track. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely, of course, the 3 DRS zones around this circuit as well, so that just improves the overtaking just as much. It's always a pretty good overtaking track for a street circuit, of course, it as well. So, but it do get quite a lot of opportunities in terms of action zones. We can perhaps look immediately into turn 1. You have the DRS straight down the home straight. You've can be really quite a good overtaking spot into turn 1. You can try to send it down the inside or even around the outside, as I found out the hard way on Monday night, and as we saw a couple of moves there on Tuesday night in realistic performance. Of course, you do have the inside line then for turn 2. Around the chicanes of 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, it's not quite all that same. You've got a DRS straight connecting turn 7 to turn 8. We don't see too much overtaking there, but I suppose if you are impatient, you can definitely try and send one down the inside. And of course, if you're very late, last of the late breakers, and maybe just caught up in a little bit of a train and you're feeling brave, you can send it down the inside of that hairpin. The DRS detection is just before the hairpin, I believe. And then of course you have the long DRS straight coming into the final chicane. Just got to try and maybe send it down the inside. You want to try and wrestle it over the curbs, avoiding the wall on the exit. And of course, even if you do get the move done, you'll still have DRS coming down the home straight. And we did have our championship leader lead the session. I think he's straight back in, Charlie, which is a good thing to see, because in Monza last week, it couldn't have gone much better for him. He extended his championship lead to about 9 points now to Luke Bailey, and it was really a bit of a mistake from Luke, it looked like, in terms of strategy towards the end.
Yeah, obviously they had that highly controversial incident between the two as well, going into turn 4, the chicane there, where they both found themselves in the gravel, but they got back on and started battling away again. And yeah, Luke decided to pit under that VSC, which really cost him a lot of points in the end. So yeah, he's got like you say, a 9-point gap now to make up on Craig, and gladly Craig has got back in, so he won't be he'll be there to defend that gap.
Absolutely. And of course these guys just getting their out laps all done and sorted. Just quickly change one of the settings just so we can hear the engine noise just that little bit better, and there we are. That should be much better for you guys in the stream. And just watch the Hassel Tennessee just rounding out the turns 1 and 2, going out on the medium tyres. And in terms of strategy, Charlie, and in terms of what we could potentially see as it gets very close to the wall there, I think he might have even damaged his front wing there, just looking at his end plate. And I think we might be seeing quite a lot of that tonight.
Yeah, it's so hard to nail a lap round here, obviously with the very strict track limits. You go over those white lines just by a millimetre and it invalidates your lap. So you'll see these guys pushing the boundaries at every corner and every chicane as to where they can put the car. And obviously we've seen Tinnis there just full foul of that, and he has indeed lost his end plate.
And Tinnis will be without his teammate tonight. Vortex Taylor cannot make it in the second Haas, so he's got a little bit of a burden to carry on his shoulders tonight. Haas have moved down the championship standings. I believe they are now bottom. They are at the foot of the constructors standings after a good point scoring position for the Ferrari pair. Colin in the Ferrari at Monza. You see Simon Palmer doing 1 minute 9.2, and then Luke Bailey at 9.3 on the medium tyre. So the Alfa Romeos are keen to pit down a banker lap, and they've set, I think, a fairly competitive lap time there. And I'm sure they'll be looking to go faster on in the session. So Tinnis has got a little bit of work to do to try and carry on the good work of him and his teammate. Of course, they've both shown really good pace, particularly in qualifying. Haven't had it all their own way, but I'm sure they'll be looking to try and make amends for it now, as we're just about to see Cryptox and Teo Rosso, who Teo Rosso did have a very good result in Monza, not necessarily for Cryptox, but his teammates ratio led from start to finish, pole position and the race win. Absolute dominant race from him, Charlie, and he's still got quite a lot of points to make up. He's about, I think it's about 31 points off Craig, I want to say, so he's got a lot of ground to make up, but he is, even if he's not quite consistent, he is showing himself to be one of the fastest guys on the grid.
Yeah, Giorgio has, like you say, been one of the fastest guys at certain tracks, and in Italy we saw such a dominant display from him, taking the pole position and the win quite comfortably. So it'd be great for him if he can carry that pace across tonight and grab a good result here, and hope that Craig and Luke have problems.
Absolutely, and of course, one thing that has separated Craig and Luke from the rest of the field so far has been their inability to make mistakes, really, and they've always picked up very, very good points. In fact, Craig is the only man on the grid to to have picked up points in every single race, and he's on a real hot streak at the moment with 5 podiums in a row, and they both have 1 win between them, of course, and Luke also has 5 podiums, although he did lose a chance of going on the podium and once there was that late strategy call, which I was talking about him in the week about it, because it looked destined like he was always going to lose a few points to Craig, but he lost far more than he would have liked, as though Stephen looks like he's just gone a little bit wide through that last chicane, lost a little bit of time. He's he's on the hard tyre, sorry, and of course he goes through in a 13.6, so I'm sure there's plenty of time left in the bag for him. But just go back to that strategic call. He pitted, he saw it come, flashed up safety car on the screen at the last minute. He's coming just about to go past the pit lane. He just makes the decision to come into the pits. Only then does he realise it's a virtual safety car, so he just that little bit of a rash decision, just not quite going his way. And I think if it was a safety car, it would have been a very good decision, but it didn't just quite work out for him on that occasion. But if we could look further at the top, I've got Craig on a 1 minute 9.4, and Simon Palmer, Luke Bailey. I think Luke Bailey in particular did a pretty good race around here last night in the Realistic Performance League, and 1 minute 9.3 on the medium tyres. There's a very competitive lap time so far, it seems.
Yeah, that is a very good competitive lap round here, and I do believe that both Alphas have got pretty good pace around here. I was doing some practice with the 2 guys yesterday for Realistic, and they did have very impressive pace then. So I imagine they'll be strong tonight. They just need to keep it clean in the race, which we've seen them struggle with sometimes, especially Simon. But yeah, they'll be hoping for a good result here.
And still as well, of 1 minute 9.7 on the medium tyres, gets himself up into P4. Of course, he came second. He capitalised most of all on the incident at the second chicane between the 2 championship rivals of Luke Bailey and Craig. He slipped through to take home second place, and he showed really good pace throughout the Italian Grand Prix. Did still, as I see Malc in the report, I think he might just invalidate that last lap time. And Giorgio is on an outlap, but let's have a look at the Williams of Gareth, and Gareth has well, he's certainly showed himself in his previous races that he's really, really upped his pace. He had quite a tough start to the season, but of course moving on to the wheel for this season, which is an all-new challenge on itself. But he's showing that despite a few mistakes here and there, pace-wise, he's certainly get to grips with the wheel, and he's certainly showing himself to be quite a good qualifier in the last few rounds. Hasn't gone all his own way, I should say. So quite a few mistakes, but particularly when running in good positions, which probably makes it even more infuriating for the Williams driver. But it's saying he's on the medium tyres, despite what I think he's on the medium tyres, despite what it's saying on the left-hand side of the screen there. So we'll just see how he does. Looks like he's gone a little bit wide, potentially in the Wall of Champions, but I don't think he's invalidated. He's going to flick open DRS, going to come across the line and goes 1 minute 10.3, which might have been invalidated, in fact, after all. So he might have to go. Going to have to go again now, I think.
Yeah, he just invalidated. Went a bit too deep into the final chicane and clattered over that left-hand curb. So just invalidated there. It's a shame. It was not a bad lap, but I think he'll be wanting to find a bit more pace to keep up with the top guys here.
And see Drazier, of course, he's got red hot form coming into this event. Obviously pole position in Monza, and of course the race win as well. An absolute dominant display from him. And he's about to set his first flying lap of the Grand Prix, or the qualifying session, I should say, rather, as he's going to come down this back straight in the blue and red Toro Rosso. Of course, we're expecting him to be pretty high up on the grid. Of course, Simon Palmer improves the time of an 8.6, so the first man into the 8s, and he's comfortably in the 8s. What has Drazier got in his pocket to show? He hasn't got an 8, but he's got a 9.5, puts him just behind the championship leader of Craig. But that's a super lap time there from Simon Palmer.
Yeah, that is a super lap from Simon. As I was just saying, I do believe the two Alphas have got really good pace here, so I'm expecting a strong quali at the very least from both of them. It's not too far even off what we saw the F1 guys doing on Monday. So yeah, a very good lap, and to be honest, I'm not sure who's going to beat that at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a very, very sturdy lap time. Of course, with 9 minutes to go in the session, he's got plenty of time, if he feels he's got time left in that lap, to improve it even further. And of course, Luke Bailey, after saying a very good lap time on the mediums, let's see what he can do on the soft tyres now. Of course, they should automatically, I think it's about 0.4 of a second on the delta that the softs should give you on the mediums. So he's already going 1/10 of a second faster in that first sector, but it's not a purple first sector, so he might have a little bit of time to find on his teammate so far on it. So he's got to improve by around about 7 to 8 of a second to try and match his teammate's time. Of course, we know his teammate's time is a very, very strong position to be in, and of course Simon Palmer hasn't had it all his own way. He's had 4 non-scoring results so far this season after a very dominant display the first round of the season, and going very wide at the hairpin of turn 10 there. Luke Bailey probably losing a little bit of time. He might have been able to gain a little bit back from a slightly better exit if he could open it up a bit more, and he's got the Williams going slow in front of him. He might try and maybe nab a little bit of a slipstream. Might be a little bit too far back, but it looks like it's backed out, so he's clearly not improving by as much as he would have liked, Luke Bailey, and I'm sure he'll come back again as Craig now just finishing the second sector to see what his time is. He's got to find about 8 to 9 tenths of a second to really get himself in conversation with Simon Palmer. He's only going 2 tenths of a second faster, which would put him provisionally second place on the grid, but yeah, he's got a little bit of time to make up. We'll see how he gets there. Pretty nice exit out of the hairpin of turn 10. Also going to flick open DRS along the back straight. Of course, you're going to want a slippery car around here. There's a lot of corners, of course, but if you want to get overtaking done, you're going to want to try and get it done down this back straight if you possibly can. It's going to wrestle it over the 2 curbs, flick the DRS wide open, and still improves his lap time to a 9.3, and Craig just about pips him with a 9.1.
Yeah, that's still, it's a good lap from Craig, but it's still half a second off that Alfa Romeo of Simon, so it's looking like a really strong lap from Simon. As we know, Craig is one of our fastest drivers here in this league, and he's still finding himself half a second off, so yeah, it's looking like it's going to be a really tough ask for anyone to beat. I can only really see Luke with that kind of pace of Simon's at the moment.
And I should probably discuss as well, Charlie, because this is one of the tracks where in terms of a 50% distance race, this is one of the few circuits where really you have kind of got a little bit of choice when it comes to strategy. Normally it's quite a rigorous, one stop, medium to hard or soft to medium, say, but you have got a little bit of fluctuality around this circuit, because you can do a 2-stop soft, medium, which we've seen quite a lot of people do, and I'm sure those who are all qualifying in the soft tyres this evening will try and do. But if you qualify outside the top 10, of course, the medium hard strategy is there for you if you have that option.
Yeah, it definitely is there for you, and maybe permitting a couple of safety cars or something like that, it could work. But personally, I see the soft, medium being the optimum strategy here. Did a bit of testing, and the hards just felt horrible, and this track is not that grippy as it is, and being on that hard tyre, your lap times really suffer. So you'll be finding a lot of these guys on the 2-stop will be coming at you really fast in the race, and I don't think they'd be able to have much of an answer for the 2-stoppers unless there is a safety car that gives them a free pit stop.
To see Tinnis now is currently sat in P6. He's got a second to find provisional pole, but he is going just a 1/10.5 quicker, so that could put him ahead of Drazier. He's gone a little bit deep into turn 10, almost brushing the wall there as well, so it's not going to be a very good exit. He might even lose a little bit of time on his delta. I'm sure just trying to wrestle it over the last 2 curves, because we should probably say we all know how difficult it is with penalties around here, Charlie, but I mean particularly this is in fact goes straight on into the pit, so he's clearly not happy with his lap time. But if you're feeling particularly brave, and if you really ride the track limits, particularly in that last chicane, you really can suddenly find yourself to gain a tenth or maybe even 2 tenths.
Yeah, I think maybe 2 tenths is being a bit cautious. I think maybe you can find 3 or 4. I mean, I've seen some weird sector times come in when a guy isn't committed through the chicane, and he sort of is a bit cautious through there, and that final chicane, you can lose a lot of time. So it really is crucial to nail, but also easier said than done.
Drazier certainly not being cautious through the final chicane, absolutely wrestling the tail also over that second curve, and he puts himself into P3, so he's really putting himself much conversation of the Alfa Romeo, of Simon Palmer, Craig in the Renault, and of course Luke Bailey as well. I don't think he's improved on his time on the medium tyres yet, so he's got 4 minutes left in the session, so he's got a decision. He's put a very good time there, what it means, but it's a yellow flag, and I think I might just someone getting out of the way. But I mean, if you're Luke Bailey, you've probably got a decision to make, because you're sat in P5. You've set your best time on the mediums. It's a very, very competitive time on mediums. I mean, only a couple of tenths slower than Craig, who's on the softs. He's probably sat there in the garage thinking, do I go and put on the softs and probably nab at least second place, or do I maybe think better of it and start a few places back? But it could give him a pretty good chance in terms of strategy come the race.
Yeah, I think exactly as you say, he has got a real choice to make now. That's a pretty good time on the medium, and he's only found himself 2 tenths and a few places behind his championship rival Craig. So judging him on that pace, I think he could stick with Craig in that opening stint on those mediums, because those soft tyres, although they are slightly quicker, they do drop off really quickly. So if he could stick with Craig for that first stint, he could find himself coming at those guys really quickly at the end of the race once he changes onto his softs, and it's definitely an option that's on the table for Luke at the moment.
He'll certainly be having a long, hard think about it. And of course, the circuit 4.36 kilometres long. That's 2.71 miles. And Cryptox just about to complete his next flying lap. Currently sat in P14 at 10.5. I'm sure he wanted to try and boost himself up the order. And 1 minute 9.3. So he's put himself, about 14,000 slower than his teammate. That's a really good effort. Just going to show how close it is, particularly from P3 all the way down to P6, all within a 0.3. That's really, really competitive stuff there, and still no one coming close really at all to Simon Palmer. I mean, Simon Palmer might be sitting in the pits there thinking, well, can I match that lap myself? Is it even worth going out again? So I maybe just save another set of soft tyres to use for the race, because a lot of guys sitting in the pits, and I think just buying their time, because it's quite a short lap round here, probably around 68 to 69 second lap time, so you can leave it quite late. Come out just over 2 minutes left in the session. I'm sure we'll see a lot of these guys filing out, and not going quite so well for the Williams. It looks like maybe they might be struggling in terms of invalidation. So Stephen sitting on a 1 minute 11.4. He's going out on the medium tyres. I believe his time that he did set was on the hards, and Gareth still yet to set a lap, so maybe struggling with invalidations there, which to be fair to everyone, it seems like everyone's doing a pretty good job at handling the tough track limits around here so far.
Yeah, like you say, that they are all doing a good job. They've all set pretty decent time. So now the final runs are coming up. So it's about being brave and really pushing as much as you can with those track limits, and looking for those extra attempts anywhere that you can, which I'm sure we'll see guys doing now.
And see what Stephen can do. Can he improve on his lap time? Of course, he want to be trying to not just get into the 10s, but possibly into the 9s. He was on those medium tyres, so of course, realistically, it's always going to be hard to try and better those of the drivers who are trying to go out on the softs, as his teammate looks like he's going out on the softs right out now, because he's going to have one last go at it. But I want to try and get himself into the top 10 if possibly can. He's going to need a 1 minute 9 lap time to do that for him. As I see him just about to come up to the second sector split time, as Luke Bailey retires from the session. So clearly he is going to stick with those medium tyres, and that could be really, really crucial come the start of the race.
It's definitely an interesting call. It's a bold call from Luke. He's obviously got the confidence about his race pace, but he will have traffic in front of him in that initial stage of the race. So you can't leave yourself vulnerable. If someone makes a mistake and just you clip your front wing on them, you could find yourself in trouble. So that it could ruin that strategy. But he's made a bold call. We'll see how it pays off for him.
And Stephen does get into 10, so 1 minute 10.8, which only boosts him enough for just one more position, as I think we're just about to see the last guys come across the line to do their final laps, as I think Craig's on an out lap. We'll just see. But I'm sure Luke Bailey will be absolutely desperate that no one goes fast. Again, I'm sure he'll be looking at particularly the likes of Jeffrey. It's a very good qualifier, hasn't had it all his own way of late. And of course, they'd probably be looking at Captain Stiff as well. They're 17th yet to set a lap time. Of course, he's been very good in qualifying of late as well. I think Jeffrey's just about across to the line now. I think he's going half a second quicker. So where does that put him? Just in P8, and McLaren as well of F1 Richard pinning himself up into P3. So a fantastic lap there from the McLaren driver. I think we're about to see Malc come across the line in the Red Bull. He's going 1.4 seconds quicker. So put him just outside the top 10, and goes P14, just about gets into the 9s. Looks like Sir Spud as well, going 7 tenths of a second faster. This could put him right up, and it does a 1 minute 9.2, but I think that was invalidated there for the Ferrari driver, which is a real shame for him, as I think O'Stevens just going for another lap. I don't think he improves, and Gareth is also coming up to the line on those soft tyres, yet to set a lap. I don't believe he's invalidated yet. So I think Simon Palmer in the background sweeping his tyres. I don't think he's going any quicker. We'll see what the Williams driver can do. He's going to be in the 9s, 1 minute 9.4, which is not a bad lap at all. Only a couple of attempts off Craig in P2, but it doesn't get him inside the top 10. Where just see what Craig can do. He's backed out. So that looks like that should be the running order. But wow, fantastic lap from F1 Richard there, right at the end. Of course, won in Abu Dhabi. Hasn't had it quite all his way since, and there's been quite a bit of a struggle for the McLaren drivers of late. In fact, the best form of the McLaren drivers probably have to say been towards Brennan's in the last few races, despite not having the best of luck. And he's popped up at the last minute. It's been himself third on the grid.
Yeah, I mean that's a great lap by F1 Richard. It's good to see him back up there after that early win in the season. That is incredibly close, isn't it? All the way from Craig down to, I think, P11, P12. It's around about 3 tenths. So I mean that's going to be incredible. That pace, I know we say this every week, but if that pace translates over into race pace, we're going to see some incredibly close battling.
Yeah, I mean, Simon Palmer said incredible qualifying form, but of course just one win and just 2 podiums. Of course, one of those wins and one of those podiums was round 1 in Japan. He's found it very difficult in the race to try and convert good qualifying, but we'll see what Canada brings him come the race. Then of course Craig in P2, F1 Richard in P3, Drazier in P4, still in P5, Crit talks a good lap in P6, Luke Bailey drops another place, so down into P7, JSP in P8, Jeffrey P9, Nurch Guys is your top 10, and of course those outside the top 10, well, at least you get the choice of a new set of tyres. Of course you can go on to whatever tyres you have available to you depending on what tyre allocation you went for. And something we saw quite a lot in the F1 League, and certainly something I noticed last night, Charlie, is those outside the top 10 quite seem to really favour the medium tyre to go that little bit longer, and it could really cause a headache for the likes of Simon Palmer and Craig that co at the front, because we could have to see our leaders battling past people due to different strategies.
Yeah, it's crucial. Everyone on the 2-stop is going to have to do some racing at some point. So, like you say, those guys starting outside the top 10, if they do choose the mediums, they'll find themselves in the way, so to speak, of the leaders when they make their stop. So it's crucial that the leaders, have got good racecraft. They need to cut through these cars as quick as they can, otherwise they could find themselves getting undercut or even overcut by the cars around them.
Yeah, we're just waiting for these guys because they're just getting their final preparations done before we start the formation lap for this Canadian Grand Prix. And of course, nice really looking at the clouds. I'm not sure what the forecast is, but looking at those clouds, looking far more cloudy than qualifying. So who knows? Maybe there might be just a sprinkle of rain later on in the race. Of course, with weather forecasts on this game, just like in real life, are never 100% accurate. But I'm sure Simon Palmer will be hoping for a bone dry race and he'll be wanting to get a good start. It's quite a short run down to turn 1, but it doesn't necessarily mean there will be no overtaking. Of course, it is a chicane effectively to start the left-hander of turn 1, and then quite a long right-hander into turn 2. So if you do try and hang it around the outside of turn 1, it could fortune quite favourably for you into turn 2. And we could see quite a lot of close racing. And of course, again, going to that hairpin on the first lap when these cars can be absolutely bunched nose to tail. We could see someone maybe a little bit brave on the brakes, but of course you've got to be so careful not to clip your front wing. And of course, you don't want to get a little bit too aggressive on these opening laps, because I think, as we've said many times, Charlie, I think penalties really could be crucial to come the end of this race.
Yeah, penalties will be crucial, as I've unfortunately found out in 2 separate occasions here. So yeah, they do need to just be cautious, get through the first couple of laps, because it is a narrow track round here as well. And in Sector 1, when everyone's jostling for position at the start, you just want to be careful and protect that front wing at all costs, because if that goes, then you'll be finding yourself facing an uphill struggle for the rest of the race.
Absolutely, of course, a street circuit, and it's very, very easy not just to chip that front wing on another car, but of course the walls are so close. Not just the wall of champions, I think it's also the even the outside wall on the left-hand side of turn 8 really comes out at you, and if you hit that, I mean, you will not be losing a front wing, you could be losing an entire wheel. Of course, even turn 5, that flat right, you want to try and hug it as much as you can, but of course, hug it too much, you'll be find yourself bouncing across the track. And these guys are like just about ready to start the formation. Of course, Simon Palmer getting us underway. And well, it's got Alfa Romeo and a Renault on the front row of the grid, but it's not the Alfa Romeo second in the championship. But Luke Bailey, as we just go across now to find out on tyres, is the only man in the top 10 on those medium tyres, and I'm sure he'd be hoping to really get a good clean start, but to try and get himself maybe a position or two. It will be harder. You won't have the best traction compared to the guys around him with soft tyres, but if he can get a good start, because he knows he won't want to let his teammate and Craig get too far away. If they've got slightly better pace than the likes of maybe the McLarens or the Toro Rossos in front of him, he could find himself beginning to get a little bit distant to his championship rival, which I'm sure he will not want at all. Of course, Jeffrey moved up into P9 there towards the end, and Nitro Gas, of course, came on the podium in the Realistic Performance League last night, so he's clearly very comfortable around this track, and I'm sure he'll be looking to make a couple of places. But just like last night, Charlie, and just like perhaps shouldn't be too surprised about, everyone outside the top 10 is going for a set of mediums or hard tyres.
Yeah, they've obviously gone with that alternate strategy. I mean, I'm surprised about the guys on the hards, to be honest, because like I previously mentioned, I don't think it's a good race tyre, but we've seen previously that Spud does like that tyre, so yeah, I'm not surprised he's gone for it, but could find himself struggling in that opening stint, especially on the heavy fuel load.
Yeah, and these guys just trying to get all the warmth into their tyres to give them the absolute best traction and best getaway for the run into turn 1. And as you're saying, I think they're now just about to come through the last corner to get themselves ready and strapped in for the start. Of course, you'll be waiting for just a little bit of time, particularly these guys at the front, Simon Palmer and Craig, and of course the nerves, particularly when you're at the front, and particularly when you've got a championship to fight for like Craig has. I'm sure the nerves will just be just that little bit high. And of course to see Synchronousley already on the grid there, he's in P13, and I'm sure he'll be wanting to try and get in amongst the Alfa Romeos, particularly Luke Bailey, if he can try and get in the way. Of course, he's speaking during the week, saying he will be very happy to try and do his best to try and help Craig, not just in the drives, but of course for the constructors as well. Of course, Renault, I think, are just 6 points off the Alfa Romeo team, but we are 5 red lights and we're just waiting for it to go out, and it's gone out. It looks like it's a little bit of a wheel spin start from the Alfa Romeo driver. Craig's going to pull to the outside, it's not quite alongside, he's going to think better of it, and as you see the Toro Rosso, the Drajo trying to have a little sniff on the outside. It's F1 which goes so close to the back, and see Drajo falls into P4. We've got the Mercedes looking like he's trying to fend off Cryptox as they're going almost side by side for the next signals corners. Luke Bailey is still holding on to P7, he's right in the back of the Toro Rosso. I think he just had to back out of move like that. Oh, we've got
I'm seeing a Toro Rosso in the wall. Cryptox is round. I'm not sure who he made contact with, but he is round at the back. And also into turn 1, Jeffrey just went in a bit too hot, hit the back of another car, broke his front wing, and had to back out, and then found himself spun round by another car as well. So Jeffrey and Cryptox are big losers from that start.
I mean, I'm not too sure to say. I've got Cryptox on my screen still sat in P6 right behind still, right. So I'm not sure. I mean, one of us, you have no idea telling which one is the real Cryptox, but I'm certainly hope for his sake it's the Cryptox on my screen, because he's looking very racy in P6 behind the Mercedes of Still. But it's been a very nice start from Simon Palmer. He's already eked out a 1.2 second gap, so he's clearly got a bit of race pace in his car. Drajo getting almost all out shape coming out of the final chicane. The Simon Palmer, so of course, setting the fast lap of the race, and he leads by a 1.3 second gap as Drajo is looking very, very racy to F1 Richard. F1 Richard already a second and a bit behind the Renault of Craig, so maybe not quite liking these soft tyres on this heavy fuel load as much, maybe just biding his time. Of course, he was saying got to be so careful not to pick up early warnings. It's a 35 lap race, it's such a long distance to go, and as you were saying quite rightly earlier, and it's just you found out in Monday and Tuesday, you can pick up a warning from just about anywhere, and when you're on a train and when you're under pressure from cars left, right and centre, you really can pick up an early warning. It's just like we've got Jeffrey in for an early pit stop. Yeah,
Jeffrey in to change that front wing. I do believe that I've got a bit of a desync problem with Cryptox, so he is now appearing in the lead and back down to 15, so I'll ignore him. I can't tell what he's doing. We've got the two Red Bulls changing positions. I don't know if Nitrogas has got a problem. He seems to be going backwards. I think he's missing both end plates on his front wing, unfortunately for him.
It's a real shame for the guy who came on the podium just last night, and of course I think he's just letting his teammate go, and we wanted to come into the pits right now. But it looks like we've got a little bit of a gap forming between the guy in P1, the guy in P2 and the guy in P3, and Dragio. But he's got to be careful because, of course, the thing is for Dragio, he's the first in the queue, and he want to be impatiently wanting to get past the McLaren. But in the early stages of such a tight race, when it can be a bit of a DRS train of 3 DRS zones around here, you've almost got to have 2 eyes facing forward, 2 eyes facing back, because the likes of Steel and Cryptox behind him are going to want to try and get a move on the best they can as soon as possible.
Yeah, again, I hate to keep referring back to Monday, but I had that exact thing on Monday. I had a couple of guys in front of me battling, and someone so close behind me. You have got to have 360 vision. It's so difficult, and to not make a mistake is incredibly hard. So yeah, these guys have got to keep their wits about them, and if they feel they've got the pace on the car in front, they've got to get it done as soon as possible, because you will find someone behind you attacking you.
And see Nitrogas also coming to the pit stop after wanting to change it up from each client just behind Jeffrey in the racing points. So those guys are going to have a pretty long evening to try and get themselves back in contention for some serious points tonight. Of course, they have got clear air at least. I'm sure they'll be hoping for maybe a safety car to bring them a little bit of a second chance. As F1 which is still keeping the tail also of Dragio behind. It's still pretty close between them. Simon Palmer's this new fastest lap of the race, a 12.7, and he's really eking out that advantage. You start lap 4, he's got a 2.3 second gap, so he's absolutely flying in that Alfa Romeo drive. As long as he can keep it clean, he's looking very strong. Dragio kicking the rear out on exit of turn 2 is a really difficult traction zone in qualifying, gets low in the race on these heavy fuel, trying to make all the most of the track limits on that left-hander of turn 4 as we come around turn 5, and there's a spud on just lap 4 picking up a 3-second time penalty. So there is the proof. He's had a good start. He's got himself just up into P11, so just outside the points. It's Gareth also getting himself inside the points into P9 as Luke Bailey looks like it's getting a little bit of a Dragio just having a look on the inside of F1 Richard onto turn 8 and turn 9. It just got out of it at the last minute, but now might come under a little bit of pressure from the Mercedes. Still goes very deep on the brakes, very wide. That might allow Cryptox to come back at him. I think Cryptox just losing a little bit of traction out the hairpin, but that was super late on the brakes from Steele. Might have even missed his braking point, but trying to go around the outside of tail also didn't quite work out for him. Might allow Luke Bailey to gain up a little bit. He'll want to try and get the DRS zone of these guys to try and help protect his position, as looks like he's just about fended off. Oh no, just Luke Bailey's coming to the pits. He must have damage.
In the pits. Is he? He is replacing the front wing, I believe. Yep. Unfortunately for Luke Bailey, like we mentioned, he's gambled on that strategy and picked up front wing damage early on. So that strategy is now completely out the window unless he can take this set of mediums quite far into the race.
Another driver who might well be hoping for a safety car later on in this race to get himself back into it. It was looking. I was going to say, it was a bit surprising that he was dropping quite a bit. He was about 2 seconds behind the pair of Dragio, Steele and Cryptox just behind them as well. And it was weird that he was just struggling so much after such good pace in qualifying on meetings. I suppose an early front wing damage, of course, that perhaps explains it, and decided he couldn't deal with it anymore. He looked like he was about to get swallowed by the Mercedes of JSP, and the Renault Synchronously also looking to attack as well. And of course he's now again got a long evening ahead of him, as Captain Stiff has made up more places on those medium tyres. He's now the highest runner on those medium tyres. He's got himself into P7, and I'm sure he'll be looking to try and gain on these guys. As it's Dragio absolutely kicking the rear out on the exit. He looks like he's really struggling for traction, but that's allowed Steele to get past him up into P4. He was saying the rear tyres can really quickly go off, and it might possibly be just overheating him, because he looks like he is absolutely slithering out of each corner.
Yeah, this is round about the lap that these soft runners want to start coming in, because these, like you just mentioned, these soft tyres just fall off a cliff straight away, and you can find yourself with no rear grip, and you can actually find yourself losing not tenths a lap, seconds a lap.
And of course Nitrogas sat in new fast lap of the rest of a 12.6 there. Of course he's in plenty of clear air, but he is currently sat in P16, so he's got plenty of work to do. And seeing just on a minute, I think it's just about catching up to the racing point, just slowly but surely. But at least once again, further proof that he has got very good pace on this. So it might not be over for him yet. He might be able to get himself back into contention later on in the race, especially if there is a late safety car as well. I'm sure Luke Bailey will be hoping for that as well. Of course, the man set number 2 in the championship order. He'll be desperate to try and take some points, but it's looking pretty good for the man who's first in the championship, as I think we've got an early pit stop for the Alfa Romeo, and Craig follows in him. So lap 6, quite an early stop it seems, but the undercut is quite effective. Maybe both of them are gambling that or hoping that they don't get the advantage of an undercut.
Yeah, I think both sets of mediums will do 15 laps quite comfortably, so that's your 30 laps on medium, so I think lap 6 is around about right for those soft tyres. Get rid of them because they're not doing you any favours after that lap.
So F1 Richard inherits the lead, at least for now. I'm sure he'll be thinking about coming to the pits, if not this lap, maybe the next, as they're still looking to continue his good form after his podium in Monza. And again, it's a little bit of movement on the rear there, coming out that corner of turn 7. And of course, you've got the DRS coming into turns 8 and 9. Goes, taps the back of F1 Richard, and he spun the McLaren around, just the smallest of taps. And F1 Richard's gone straight on into the barrier. I thought the lack of grip didn't help the tap at all. He's going to have to try and be very careful when rejoining. It looks like it's been quite sensible and thankfully getting out the way. But look, he's already lost the pit stop to the guys who's just for a few seconds behind that spin. It's just still had so much more confidence on the brake, and I think it's just caught out by the McLaren's lack of grip. He just sort of parked it on the apex of turn 8 and still could just do nothing but just run into the back of him and sent the poor McLaren driver around as Drazier now comes into the pits. So that's desperately unlucky for the McLaren driver. He did such a good qualifying and is looking really strong.
Yeah, that is a real shame. As we say, F1 Richards, it was really good to see him back up there. Unfortunately, still was just gone a bit too hot on the brakes, as we saw him do previously in this race, down into the hairpin. He's gone hot on the brakes again and tagged F1 Richard, and like you say, without the grip, he's never going to save that. So that's really unfortunate, and yet again, another driver that will be hoping for a safety car so he can recover from there.
Yeah, he's in the pits, and of course I think changing for a new front wing as well. As you see, Tinnis currently sat in P6 right behind the Ferrari, also Spud, and Spud beginning to pick his way through the field. Of course, he's got himself amongst the medium tyre drivers, and of course only 2 guys left on the soft still yet to pit. That is Steele and Cryptox in the 2 Toro Rosso, and looks like Gareth is just about to put himself all amongst the gearbox of that Toro Rosso. And of course, there's probably the phase in the race where these mediums, despite both doing 7 laps, of course they're harder compounded tyres, going to have just a bit more grip than those who are on the softs. And we'll see how slippery his car is in a straight line. We see him quite often not have the slipperiest of cars, the Williams driver, but it looks like tonight, let's see Cryptox just saving a bit of energy. Looks like he's going to come into the final chicane. I think Cryptox might go into the pit lane anyway. In fact, indeed he does. But Gareth now moves up into the lead, at least for now. But he's going to try and extend this stint the most he can, of course. But he's looking like he's got some fairly good race pace. And I'm sure he's got synchronicity as well, following just a second and a half behind. But he's got to really make the most of this now.
Yeah, Gareth has been, like you say, showing some really good race pace in this first stint. And he didn't fall too far back from those guys who were on the soft. So he's looking in a pretty handy position at the moment. If he can just keep this pace up for another 7 or 8 laps and then pit for his mediums again, he'll be finding himself in quite a handy position later in the race. And
so Spud just 8 tenths of a second behind Tinnis, so he's keeping himself really in tech with these medium runners, despite being on those harder tyres. And I'm sure if he's on those harder tyres, I can surely only imagine he is going for that 1 stop, so he'd probably be wanting to try and eke out to probably around lap 20 to really come in for a set of mediums and then go to the end on them. If he wants to try and make the 1 stop work. Probably the only driver right now who's opting for that 1 stop strategy, and be a bit of a moving chicane for a lot of these guys. In fact, Malc and the Rebel all over the gearbox of this Ferrari. What straight speed has he got? Simon Palmer also looking very impatient to try and get his way back up through the field. Of course, he's got much better grip than these guys. He's only done 2 laps on these medium tyres, and we'll see what he can do. Got Synchronously picking up a 3-second time penalty. I don't think he'll be the only one today, so he's just going to try and have to get his head down. He's got a comfortable gap to the car behind him as Drazier puts in a 12.1, a new faster lap of the race from him, but he's got a little bit of ground to make up on Craig. He's currently 4.4 seconds behind, as just going right on board of Craig, who's sort of stuck right behind the Williams of O'Stephen. I'm sure he'll be desperate to try and get past the Williams, because he knows just ahead of the Williams car is Simon Palmer, who's about 3 seconds ahead of Craig come the pit stops, but just getting caught in this traffic isn't quite helping. As we look to the inside into turn 8, it's going to go late on the brakes, got the DRS, going to go really tight, and Malc just about gives him space. And I think that's good driving from the pair of them. It's not an easy overtaking point at all, but they got the move done. Likewise, I think Craig has passed Stephen in similar fashion.
Yeah, this is one of the crucial phases of the race now as these guys clear this traffic. They need to do it as quickly and as efficiently as possible without any hiccups. They are doing that so far, but like you say, Craig has gained on Simon through this, so Simon obviously finds it a little bit more difficult than Craig thus far.
He's in the DRS of the Prix, and I'm sure he's just probably keeping a little bit of an eye on his main rivals' progress through the field as well. He has got a car in between them, crucially, as he's got so much more grip coming out of turn 1. And he's going to try and come back underneath into turn 2. It'd be a super move if he can do it. He's going to pull alongside, coming into the right hander of turn 3, and he's got the job done. So Spud gets out of the way. He knows it's not really his battle. Super bit of traction here from Simon Palmer, and real good speed carried through turn 1, and just opened up the exit for turn 2 and came back underneath the Prix. Of course, the Prix on tan lap odd hards really doesn't have any answer in terms of the grip levels, and now it's sort of turned on its head a little bit. Craig has caught up, but he's now got 2 cars to pass if he wants to catch up with Simon Palmer. The good news is Simon is going to quite quickly gain tennis, I think.
Yeah, that was great driving there by Simon. Perfect switchback executed well at turn 2, and he's, like you say, put 2 cars in between himself and Craig, which is absolutely crucial at this stage in the race. Oh, as Malc goes deep into the hairpin and Craig slivers down the inside of him, so Craig has cleared one of those cars, and he'll be quickly onto the back of that Ferrari, I suppose.
Yeah, therefore it doesn't have DRS, but it's just a little bit too far ahead. As Simon Palmer has already caught up to the Haas of Tennis, I'm sure he'll be looking to try and get a really nice run coming out this final chicane. He's going to have DRS, going to tuck into the slipstream, and it'll be a remarkable progress. In fact, that just going past there, the Haas of Tennis, I think he's just minus a front wing end plate on that left hand side, so he's going to have a little bit of damage, and of course lacking a little bit of downforce. So yeah, you can see it there coming around the right hand of turn 2, so he's going to be lacking not just grip from his tyres, but just overall downforce, as Craig looks like he's going to have to face at least another half a lap behind the Ferrari of Sir Spud. In fact, Sir Spud picking up a 3-second time with today, as 2 did Tennis. So these guys on old tyres really finding it hard to find some grip, as we see Craig now just coming out the exit of turn 7, got much better grip, he's got the DRS. Has he got the strength and speed to get the job done into turn 8? He's going to think better of it. Of course, he's got to think of the championship. He knows Luke Bailey's got so much more ground to make, as it looks like Dragio has just made the move on Stephen, and looks like Still is now going to try and get past the Williams as well, coming into the hairpin of turn 10. They're going to try and go around the outside, and Stephen's going to try and hug the inside line, but he hasn't got the grip on the exit, and so that gives the place to Still. We'll go back on board with Craig, and this time down the back straight with DRS coming into the last chicane. He's got the job done, so good bit of progress there from Craig, but he has now, looks like he has drops again back to around 3 to 4 seconds behind Simon Palmer, so it's just costing him slightly there.
Yeah, it's been a great stint by Simon so far. He's cleared this traffic perfectly and put cars in between himself and Craig each time, and has brought that gap back out. So yeah, it's absolutely faultless so far from Simon. He's just doing everything he needs to do to control this race, and really is. I mean, I think Craig will be happy with where he is though at the moment. Obviously, Luke had that problem in the first stint, so yeah, Craig will be happy with how it's going as well. Ooh.
Well, a super move. We've got 3 wide now coming down the second DRS zone between 7 and 8. We've got, I don't know who's going to get it. Still's got the inside line. As the 2, he gets both of them done. Fantastic bit of racecraft from Still in the Mercedes. It looked like a stunning move from Dragio as it came around the outside of turn 6, then at the inside for turn 7. Just couldn't quite get the throttle planted well enough. That gave Still the chance to just pick his line on the exit of turn 7. Went down the inside of the pair of them. It's just see Malc losing the traction all over the exit of turn 10 as now open DRS. So a lovely bit of racecraft from Still. He's picked off both of them in just one straight, and Dragio, after being on the brink of pulling off a fantastic move, ends up losing a position. He might have a chance to try and get it back if he's got a good enough run out the final chicane, as Simon Palmer says new fast lap of the race. Of course, he's got a little bit more clear air now, so he's able to pump in those lap times that he's showing he could do on the soft tyres, so he's clearly very comfortable on the medium tyres as well, as he's got to get to about 4 seconds towards Tennis, and yeah, another 1 second towards Craig. So Craig has got to catch up a second on the Haas driver and yet pass him before he can try and really think about Simon Palmer. So it looks like Simon might well be in a league of his own right now, and but I'm sure, like you said, quite rightly saying, I think Craig won't be too displeased with that because he knows realistically his fight is with Luke Bailey for these last 4 races, and Luke's still got quite a lot of work to do.
Yeah, definitely. Simon is showing incredible pace in this medium stint, the middle stint. He's like you say, he got that gap out to Craig over 5 seconds now, I believe, which is huge. I mean, if he's looking after his tyres as well at the same time, this is going to be it should be a relatively straightforward race from here for Simon, as Gareth now pits, I believe, and it clears out of Simon's way. So Simon has got completely clear air at the front. As we've got a battle going back on between Still and Sir Spud. Still gets the move done down the inside. Is Sir Spud going to come back at him though down the straight? I believe not, because Still has got DRS.
I mean, as Drazier pulled off almost in a fabulous move late on the brakes down the inside of Mercedes in turn 10, but he didn't quite have the exit to match. I mean, there's queuing up to try and get past the Ferrari. Still, maybe just with a better straight line speed as well, managed to get the job done in the end. Drazier is looking really impatient, but he's looking very, very racy. As see Gareth coming out into P9 on a fresh set of mediums, so he's going for a 2-stop still, but of course he will be on the softs come the end of this race, you would imagine. As the Ferrari looking like it's just almost sailing around turn 6 and turn 7 there. Surely could be an easy pass for Drazier. The Ferrari does have DRS coming to turn 8 anyway, but it just doesn't have the grip, and I think wisely lets the tail also driver through. But of course, if he goes on a 1-stop, he is technically racing these guys, so he doesn't want to make it too easy for them. He's, like I say, probably going to try and eke it out to about lap 20. So he's got to try and do another 5 laps. And of course, anyone that can keep behind now is it's going to work in his favour come later on in the race when he crosses that line. I think he has got a 3-second time penalty as well, so he's going to want to try and manage the fact that he doesn't get another one. It's just like Jeffrey right to the backside of spin on the exit turn 7 on the yellow flags, and I think that's just looks like it's going to be another tough night for Jeffrey.
Yeah, as we see Jeffrey leave the session, so I'm assuming he's seen enough of what tonight has brought him, and unfortunately he is now out. So yeah, JSP is having a good race, quite a little race down in P7 as he's just trying to drive around the outside of Sir Spud, who is going to back out here. This is going to be a bit dangerous if neither of them does. JSP is going around the outside. Oh, that was very nicely held from both drivers, but that's not really an overtaking place, so he's going to have to wait until this DRS zone. But Sir Spud,
no,
JSP goes round into the wall.
Broken his front wing. Oh, yeah, so it's a really nice racing from the pair of them. I don't think I've ever seen a driver try and overtake around the outside of turn 3. And at the inside of turn 4, it's just a little bit too tight. They've both just left enough space, and just losing it a little bit on the traction of turn 6. Of course, you get on the power while turning to the right for turn 7. It's a really tough traction zone, and see all the Ferrari, speaking of traction zones, just almost gliding out the hairpin of turn 10. And that means it's going to be very an easy move for the Alfa Romeo of Luke Bailey, who's having a very good recovery after obviously changing for a new front wing, we believe, and the early first stint, as you know, wrestles his Alpha over the 2 curves, and now he's going to have to think about defending from Cryptox is Sir Spud, as Synchronusi picks up 3 seconds. I think he was just having a little bit of a battle with Gareth, as Gareth's now moved into P8. So maybe just as we see Nitrogas and JSP and coming into the pits, and I think JSP is coming in for new front wings. Chris was just having another look at the Ferrari coming into turns 3 and 4. Thinks better of it, perhaps looking at what happened between the Ferrari and JSP just a lap before, maybe learning from his rival's mistake possibly. But we'll have DRS coming out of turn 7 if he's got a good enough traction. But the Ferrari's got it as well, so it's not going to be an easy pass for him. But we should probably actually credit Luke Bailey a little bit more. He's got himself into P5. Of course, he's got a real mission to do if he wants to try and better his championship rival. But he's had despite having to pit a lot earlier than he would have liked, he's looking like he's going to lose minimum points to Craig, as once looking at as Spud wrestling over the curves of turn 10 as Cryptox now drives around the outside of him.
Yeah, that Ferrari is looking absolutely horrible on those hard tyres at the moment, and he's still realistically got, I don't know, maybe another 2 laps to go, so it shouldn't be too long before he can get those off. But I mean, the amount of time he's losing now each lap to everyone is just astonishing. So he's still got cars behind him though who have got to pit and get past him, so he could be in a handy position come the end. But yeah, it's not looking good, that Ferrari. Yeah, and Luke has done a really good recovery job so far from that early damage. He's not too far behind this fight for 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, so yeah, if he can hold out on these mediums until, you know, another few laps, he could find himself not too far off at the end if he keeps his pace up.
And a really nice battle forming between the Williams of Captain Stiff, Gaff, and the Synchronously Renault for 8th and 9th, and they're just about sticking with each other, and it's looking like the runner's pretty good in a straight line, but you just see on the previous lap, Gaff absolutely flying through that final chicane, just wresting the Williams over the curbs and getting a really nice exit, and these two are about to catch the Ferrari boat. It should probably be better described as the lack of grip he's suffering with. In fact, he's already 2 seconds behind Cryptox after just losing a place in just a lap. And but Gareth won't have DRS on this lap, but I'm sure he'll be looking to make a move on the Ferrari probably as early as next lap. And but as saying, his Ferrari drive probably looking at coming to the pits probably in the next lap or two. And F1 Richard, of course, after such good qualifying, to so unfortunately getting held up in that incident with the Mercedes of steel. He's recovered slightly to P12, still got a little bit of work to do, and I'm sure he'll be looking to pit again before the end of the race, as Luke Bailey picks up 3-second time penalty, which could potentially come quite critical come the end of the race, as Simon Palmer's just eking out his advantage more and more every single lap. 6.5 seconds to Craig, but Craig's sitting pretty comfortably. He's got a 2-second gap to Steele, as just for how much more grip Gareth has got coming out the exit of turn 7. Don't see too many overtakes into turn 8, but no, he's not going to make it on this occasion. Looked like he was going to have a little bit of a think about it. He got such a good run on the Ferraris. Synchronously just having a little bit of a scruffy couple of corners. Gareth might even throw it late on the brakes. No, he's going to sit behind him. In fact, no, he's going to sit right in the back of him. And looking at that front wing end plate on the left-hand side, he's now minused it. And of course, he's only got 4 laps on his medium tyre, so he's going to want to try and eke out this stint a lot longer than he currently is. He's got DRS, but he's now going to be minus a whole heap of downforce. But he's going to come down the back straight. He's going to look to the inside, going into the final chicane. As the Spud does now come into the pits, but I'm sure Gareth will be fuming about that. He's damaged his front wing on a car that came into the pits just seconds later.
Yeah, I imagine he'll be absolutely livid with himself. It's so hard when you're behind a car that's so much slower than you, but you've just got to keep it together and just avoid them. And that's going to massively hinder his medium stint now until around about lap 25. So, yeah, that's unfortunate for Gareth, but he just needs to hang in there now and not drop too far behind the cars in front.
Just wondering if the runner Synchronously got any idea, just thought he's a little bit further back watching these two. Maybe he saw a bit of front wing fall off the Williams, because I'm sure he'd be absolutely looking to try and get the move done on this Williams, because they know he'd be easily be able to pull away should he get the job done. He will have DRS, of course, and Gareth will not have DRS come the straight this time. Looks like Drazio is also just romping up the pace a little bit, and just beginning to close in on the Mercedes of Steele. And likewise, looks like Steele's beginning to close in on Craig, as our race leader Simon now pits from the lead with 15-16 laps to go, and Craig also follows him in. So once again, literally mirroring the strategies, and once again looks like Steele and Drazio are going to go one more lap. As Synchronously goes down the inside, he just has to, not a fully committed overtake, so he just hurdles the curb, but he's going to come back underneath the wheel. He's going to have a better run. He's going to have DRS. He's going to have the inside line for turn 1, so it should be an easy move. I don't think Gareth is going to fight it with the lack of downforce that he has. And coming to turn 2, it's an easy move for the Renault driver. I'm sure for the Williams is now just going to be mission impossible to keep with him, I suppose, at least for the meantime. Try and stick in his DRS for at least a little bit longer. Simon, crucially for him, comes out just ahead of this squabbling pair, and it's looking like quite a nice evening drive so far for Simon.
Yeah, like you say, crucially for Simon, he's come out in front of the battling pair of Synchronously and Gareth, and he's got a pretty straightforward job, I imagine, to the end of the race now. Just manage those tyres and that gap to Craig, and I'm sure his teammate will roll out the way for him when he approaches him as well.
Yeah, Craig still about 4 seconds behind, so he should be able to get some good laps in before it comes up onto the squad. We'll see what Steele and Drazio do. Do they come into... no, Steele's going to do another lap, but Drazio comes straight on into the pits, and that could be a good decision by the tail or so driver. I think he won't be able to do the overcut on the Renault of Craig, but he might well if he gets a bit of clear air, which you'd imagine he'd come out just behind Craig's, hopefully for him, just ahead of the Haas of Tinnis, and if he gets a little bit clear air, he could well jump the Mercedes. He looks very, very racy all race. He's had some really strong race pace. Hasn't had it quite all his own way. I think Simon Palmer's been a league of his own, but Craig's just a little bit towards the end of that stint, looking like it didn't have all the pace of these two guys, as Synchronously picks up 3-second time penalty. Look, as Drazio going to go side by side with Tinnis. It's not really a race Tinnis wants to get into, and if he just lets the tail also go into turn 3 and 4.
Yeah, it was quite crucial for Giorgio that he cleared that Haas driver, because now he wants to get the hammer down and make sure he has a good outlap, so when Steele comes into the pits, which I imagine he will react to that this lap, then Giorgio will probably come out ahead of him, as the undercut is so strong here.
And of course our net race leader of Simon Palmer is now right on the back of the tail, so of Cryptox. Cryptox looks like he's just saving a bit of ERS down the straight, so I don't think he's going to fight it all too much. He knows it's not really his fight as Simon Palmer moves up into P3, and of course his teammate ahead of him on 17 lap old medium, so I'm sure his teammate won't pit up any sort of resistance to him whatsoever. As looks like Gareth, in fact, despite that damaged front wing, has got back past the Renault Synchronizzi, so he's doing a fabulous job despite the damage. As we quickly go and see, no, it still has stayed out, so perhaps just trying to make sure he has the absolute best tyres he could possibly ask for come this final stint. But you would think he would at least temporarily surrendering third place. As you see, Luke Bailey does get out of the way for his teammate.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why Steele hasn't reacted to Giorgio yet, because I believe he is going to find himself a little way behind the Toro Rosso driver now if he doesn't pit this lap, because as we've been saying all along, that undercut is so strong around here, he's going to struggle.
Well, I mean, Craig came in 1 lap earlier than Giorgio, and we didn't see Giorgio's in-lap or indeed his out-lap, but he's now 5 seconds behind Craig, which I think before he's only about 2.5, so I mean he's lost quite a lot of time to Craig in just 1 lap difference. As we see Synchronizzi just losing the rear slightly out of turn 10, he's still squabbling with the Williams of Gareth, and you can just see the second Williams of Craig just about peeling on these guys. It still picks up 3 seconds worth of time penalties. He's going through for another lap, so I mean it could well be potentially maybe going for the softs, yeah, but I mean the softs aren't usually a fantastic race tyre, but I mean it could at least give him an opportunity for fastest lap, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a gamble. I mean, he's got nothing really to lose. He's picking up penalties, so I'm not sure where it will drop him come the end of the race. But if he wants to get a bit racy towards the end, like you say, pick up that fastest lap, soft tyres could be a good call for Steele. So, he's just tagged the wall, lucky not to break the front wing there.
So now we saw Luke Bailey getting out of the way of Simon Palmer just a couple of laps ago. Does Synchronizzi do the same for his teammate? He said he would help his teammate if he could possibly do it in the championship. It doesn't look like he's going to get out of the way just yet. He's still wanting to try and keep with the Williams of Gareth, and Gareth's doing a really good job. He's now in fact broken the DRS, and I think Synchronizzi just potentially losing a little bit of grip in his rear tyres, and perhaps a little bit distracted by the fact he's got his teammates right in his mirrors, and see him again just sliding a little bit out of the exit. Craig's got much better traction, and I think he should have an easy pass on his teammate, as his teammate now does move out of the way. But Gareth, despite that broken front wing, he's really doing a really solid job, as Luke Bailey does now pit, and us 2 does Steele, and he does pit on those soft tyres, and he's going to try and eke him out for about 10 laps, which I suppose when you have to have less fuel on board, I suppose he could be a bit of a sitting duck for the last 2 laps, but he could be in a good position.
Yeah, I think especially like you say on the lighter fuel, it could work out here for Steele. He's just got to not take too much life out of them on those opening 2 laps, which is so easy to do because you go, oh look, they've got good grip, and you just go for it. So yeah, he just needs to manage them, but it could work out well. And he's now behind Sir Spud, so he wants to clear him pretty quickly. He wants to get a move on.
Yeah, it's come out a long way behind the tail also of Giorgio. So the man he was battling with, of course, for that final podium spot, of course, he has also picked up a 3-second time penalty just in the closing laps of that stint. So it's going to be a little bit of frustration for him, as we now see Craig all over the back of the Williams coming around the hairpin to turn 10. But he's going to have much better, a little bit of a dart to the left and right there for Gareth. I think he might even be communicating with him. Maybe even saying, I'm going to come into the pits on this lap or just go through, as Gareth does indeed let the Renault driver through, and I think he's just going to sit in the slipstream of the Renault driver. Synchronizzi does now pit, so it'll be interesting to see if Gareth responds to that. Got about 10 laps to go towards the end. You can see he's still missing that front wing airplane on that left side. It'll be interesting to decide, does he take the penalty loss in the pits of that longer pit stop to replace it, or does he feel he can eke it out for just the last 10 laps and try and hold back all the cars he possibly can? Of course, he want to be careful that he doesn't pick up too many more penalties. Of course, when you have that lack of downforce, it can be a very easy thing to do normally. But we'll just ride on board with Steele, and of course he's still right on the back of that Ferrari, so he hasn't passed him on his outlap, and but he will want to get it moved. The job done on Sir Spud, who's had a very good race. Of course, he took a lot of pain in that first stint, but now he's on the medium tyres, 6-lap hold. They should just about go to the end. I'm sure they'll be feeling pretty bad for himself. He still does have a look into the inside of turn 8 and gets the job done. But Sir Spud is sitting pretty. I mean, he's got a couple of cars behind him of Luke Bailey and Synchronousi on soft tyres who will be coming at him at a rate of knots. But strategy could well really propel him through into the point scoring positions tonight if he's kept it clean.
Yeah, I think Sir Spud has had a very good race. I mean, obviously we've had a few guys that have had incidents which have helped propel Sir Spud to this position that he's in, but he's endured the pain on those hard tyres and he's on those mediums now, which should be pretty good. So he's obviously got good pace, because to make that strategy work you have to have good pace anyway. So yeah, and unfortunately for Gareth, as I was just about to touch on, he does have to pit, which he just has now because he started on the mediums and he done 2 stints on the mediums. So of course you've got to run 2 different compounds of tyres, and Gareth has just changed over now.
And just coming out behind the runner Synchronousi, opting not to change the front wing as well, so he clearly feels he wouldn't be able to gain back the time he would have lost in the pit stop. And but it does still come out in P10. He's still got an opportunity of more points. I think he's got at least 1 3-second time penalty from track extensions so to deal with. But we're just riding the ball with still. He's right on the back of Tennis. Of course, the only Haas running tonight, and the Haas driver, I think, is not really any much. You just see him absolutely flaming wide through the exit there, turn 10, and still just got good clip in the grass there. But he should have an easy move on his hands as Craig picks up 3 seconds. So quite a rare sight there from the championship leader. Good news for him is he's got quite a cushy gap of 4.5 seconds behind him. So it's still looking quite comfortable for the championship leader as Luke Bailey, of course, sat in P8 as Tennis now comes into the pits. Luke Bailey will then be jumped up into P7. He's got a couple of time penalties, I think, Luke. But Synchronousi sits at 10.9, so fast lap of the race from him. And but it's looking very nice for Craig so far in terms of championship standings.
Yeah, it is, and unfortunately for Luke, it does look like he's had good pace tonight. So it's a bit of a case of what could have been for Luke, starting on that alternate strategy with that front wing damage he picked up at the start has really cost him. So yeah, he's moved back up into P6. It's a good recovery drive. He'll be looking to overtake Sir Spud in front. Obviously I'm not sure, he might be in a different position, but I've got Cryptox desynced on my screen, so I can't quite tell where he is, but for me Luke's in 6th and he's done a good recovery.
I think Cryptox is in P4 on my screen. He's about 2.5 seconds behind his teammate, and just under 3 seconds ahead of Steele. So I think he could just about be on.
Yeah.
For a good result.
You might have to correct me on my positions then, because I'm not sure.
I think just these things could happen. But just have a look, and of course they're all just spreading out a little bit now as Luke Bailey picks up another 3-second time penalty. I think that's at least his second, as Gareth picks up 3 seconds as well. I think that's at least his second as well. So these guys just getting a little bit ragged towards the opening, the last few laps. See Jeffrey's car getting all in the way. Blue flags being everywhere. Both Synchronousi, Renault, and Gareth having to really take avoiding action more than anything going into turn 1 and 2. And that's lost a little bit of time there for the pair of them. But Synchronousi, of course, I think he's got the fastest lap at the moment as it stands, just outside the DRS zone of Luke Bailey, and Gareth just about keeping inside the DRS zone of the Renault. And of course the gap is coming down though between Craig and Drazier. I don't believe Drazier has a 3-second time penalty as it stands, and it's gone down from about 4.5 seconds to around 3.4 in the last couple of laps. So might be worth, if Drazier hasn't already getting on the phone to his engineer, wondering if he has got a 3-second time penalty. He might have well been made aware of it, and he knows there is a position up for grabs here if he can just keep it clean and pick up his pace. Because Drazier, again, quite like Craig, there are cars around him that potentially is sometimes a little bit quicker than him, but he's just kept his nose clean. He's qualified well. He's kept his race very clean. You know, it's very rare we see him pick up a penalty at all. But I mean, even if he did lose a place, I mean, third place when your championship rival's looking like 7th at best, I mean, he could well be on for a really nice evening.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm sure that's all that matters to Craig at the moment. He just wants to beat Luke, because I think Simon is 3rd in the championship, but he's not really in with a chance if Craig just keeps it tidy to the end of the season. So yeah, I mean, it's all about managing that gap to Luke, and he's doing that perfectly at the moment, so I'm sure he'll be very happy.
And so Spud, as you're saying, his strategy has propelled him up the order. He's currently sat in P6. I think he's got maybe just one, I want to say, time penalty to his name. I think the cars behind him might have a couple more. But if he can just try and keep him, he's got 3 cars behind him on the soft tyres, and they are hungry for more positions. He's in an incredible 6th place, but his tyres are going to be very, very worn. You see just 5-lap old tyres for the Alfa Romeo of Luke Bailey, who looks like he's just destined to make a move into this final chicane. He's going to have a little sniff to the inside. He's going to pull alongside into the final corner. He's going to take that position off the Ferrari, and the Ferrari is now going to drop down into P7, but Synchronously he's probably just caught up just a little bit behind the Ferrari. He picks up another 3 seconds, so I think that's just a couple in a few laps, so he's really, really pushing on his soft tyres, probably trying to help his teammate as well a little bit, try and get ahead of Luke Bailey if he possibly can, but he's not going to help anyone picking up these penalties. But of course he's trying to negotiate the Ferrari as well. He's going to have a little dart to the inside for turn 3 and 4. Would have been a very brave move, as the Ferrari is struggling for grip on exit turn 4. They're almost coming to brush with the wall, as Renault is looking so impatient, so desperate. He's going to come to get an interesting wide line, try and open up the exit of turn 7. He's going to have DRS. Is he going to be patient and wait for the hairpins? Just see how much Luke Bailey has pulled away as Nitrogas picks up 3 seconds. He's running just outside the top 10 right now. Oh, Sir Spud's lost it on the exit of turn 8, and he's come flying in the wall. I mean, I can't say to you, it's a miracle. I think he's only just lost an end plate.
Yeah, that's although it sounds strange, it's slightly fortunate for Spud that he's only lost the end plate there. Quite an impact with the wall, and he's lucky to get away with such small damage. But yeah, that's just unfortunate for Spud. He's just lost traction on that curb of that chicane, and unfortunately gone round. But that's the risk you take when you do the one-stop round here. You're often on the less grippy tyres than other drivers around you, so it's a gamble that hasn't paid off, and Sir Spud dives into the pits, I'm assuming, for a new set of boots and a front wing.
And just looking at the front wing of Gareth now, of course, we knew he had damage on that front left side of the end plate. Well, I mean, he's literally running almost half a front wing now. I don't think that's optimal at all. I mean, he's clearly had another run in somewhere, because he's damaged. He's almost running absolutely nothing on the front left of that front wing, but he's still doing a stellar job with it. And he's still keeping in the DRS zone of Synchronously. So maybe what pace could he put in with a full front wing? I'd like to know. But with Synchronously picking up quite a few penalties in this last lap, it's going to be hard. I think Gareth has got at least a couple to his name as it is. But I'm sure he'll be on the phone to his engineer, because he knows that he maybe hasn't got the downforce to make the pass on track. But if he can keep it clean, he might be able to get a P7 at least at the moment, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm sure if what we are seeing is correct, and Gareth is doing a stellar job, as you say. But I'm sure Claire Williams will appreciate him not using up team resources.
Yeah. I mean, if you're just going to go and break it even more, then there's no point replacing it. And I'm sure it's a good decision he didn't replace it in the pit stop, if that is the case. And once again, only 3/10 of a second behind the runners, getting really nice runs down that back straight. And I'm sure that Williams, well, certainly going to be, if anything, better in a straight line with less of a front wing. So he's clearly that's learned his lessons in previous races where he looks so slow in a straight line. He's clearly not been slow in a straight line tonight. And he's been doing really well. It's just about holding with the Renault through the corners, through the tough chicanes, as we've just come around turns 6 and 7. Of course, you have the DRS around here, just see that rear wing just flap open, and it's just hovering on that second gap. This DRS zone might just about help keep him with it, as Sir Spud picks up 3 seconds as well, and I think Sir Spud to see is down to 15th, so he's actually come in to change that front wing, so he didn't fancy having ruined tyres and a ruined front wing for the remaining lap. So a shame there for the Ferrari driver. Did such a bold strategy, and we haven't seen. I don't think we've seen anyone else try the one stop tonight, and it looked like it was going to pay off for him. But of course, you do run that risk when you have such bad tyres come the end of the race. You do always leave yourself open for mistakes. It looks like Steele has just got past the tail also of Cryptox in the DRS zone into that final chicane. Cryptox trying to come back at him, and still now loses it on the exit of turns 2, and just perhaps just overheating those soft tyres, because he's done 9 laps in them, and just losing that position back again as Cryptox comes back underneath him. And I don't know where these two stand on penalties. I think Cryptox might have been able to keep it relatively clean tonight, so he could be on for a good position anyway. So he's then still cutting all the inside of turn 7, has really compromised his exit, and is now 1.1 seconds gap from 1 second behind. So he's gone from taking that position, just perhaps overheating those rear tyres just that little bit, and that's going to have to make it all happen all over again on this last lap. And of course, sure, Cryptox tyres probably 11 laps old as Gareth does pick up another 3 seconds. He's just a few tenths behind the Renault. Of course, the dirty air and the ruined front wing really not helping him through these complex of corners. I think he might have done it just on the exit of turn 9, potentially going a little bit wide through 8, but he might at least be able to get past the Renault on track. That's probably the closest he's been for a little while. He's right in the slipstream, he's right in the DRS. Synchronously going to pull to the left, Gareth's going to pull to the right, and he's going to have the job done. He's going to have to try and negotiate the final lap with half a front wing, but on track at least he's got back past the Renault.
Yeah, nice move by Gareth and incredible driving with that lack of downforce. So yeah, it looks like Synchronously has not really got an answer for him at the moment. Gareth's just doing really well with that broken front wing. But yeah, it's been a good race by Gareth, considering the damage, and a good recovery from Luke as well, also up there in P6.
And just see Simon Palmer for the last time coming around the hairpin of turn 10 as Drajo, who's got inside the 3-second gap of Craig, who I don't believe had a 3-second time penalty, until just now. On the last lap has picked up a 3-second time penalty. We'll have to see if that is in fact crucial to the changes of the man who finishes P2 and the man who finishes P3. There's absolutely no doubt who's going to win this race. We haven't seen this sort of dominance from Simon Palmer since round 1, but it takes his second win of the season. A massive well done to Simon Palmer. He has absolutely dominated the Canadian Grand Prix. The Circuit Gilles Villeneuve belongs to him tonight, as Craig does finish P2 and Drajo does go P3. If he didn't pick up that penalty, he could have had P2, as still gets Cryptox on the line through penalties. Luke Bailey, to be fair to him, does a very good recovery to finish P6. Will penalties drop him third position? I think both Gareth and Synchronously have penalties of their own, so they come across the line 7th and 8th. And Tinnisley only has tonight. Looks like he's going to get a P9 position. He looks pretty happy with that as he comes across the line, as Nitrogas looks like he will pick up the final points. And of course, you've got to feel sorry for F1, which is a fabulous qualifying lap right at the end. He's doing a really nice job. Struggled a little bit on those soft tyres, but he's doing a good job, and he's recovered well to come P11 just outside the points. And Malc in the second Mercedes, his JSP comes across the line just outside the points as well. And I think it's Spud and Stephen rounding out the back. But you've got to say, Charlie, what an incredible drive from Simon Palmer.
Yeah, it's just brilliant. It just kept the lead after the start and just ran away, really. No one could touch him, and it's sort of similar to what we saw from him in the first race of the season, and what we saw from Drajo last week as well. It's just a completely dominant drive, and it's great to see.
Yeah, we haven't seen probably only the second time really we've seen him absolutely truly convert his qualifying to the race. And of course we saw that in Japan round 1. It's been such an up and down season for Simon Palmer, but he has absolutely dominated round 9, and his second win of the season, only the second driver to win multiple races. In fact, he even has a clean race as well, and he does take home the win. And massive congratulations to him. The two-slot strategy worked perfectly for him. The Renault of Craig coming home in P2. He wasn't demoted due to a last lap penalty for Drajo, so he keeps his second place. Drajo P3 still gets Cryptox on the line with penalties for P4. P6 is Luke Bailey. Good recovery from him in the end. Gareth, despite half a front wing for most of it, finishes P7. Synchronously in P8. Good battle between the pair. Tinnisley only Haas comes in P9, and Nitrogas rounds out the points in the Red Bull in P10, so he finishes where he started. And we'll just wait for the guys to come in for their post-race interviews of the podium drivers. And I think we've got to say, Charlie, I think we all know how well Simon did tonight, but I think once again Craig doing what he normally does, which is I think that's his 6th podium in succession now, and after just a couple of just shoddy races by Luke Bailey standards, it's really sort of put the championship in the grasp of the winner driver.
Yeah, as we were saying throughout the race, Craig just doing what he needed to do. He didn't need to push for the win necessarily, and just finish up ahead of Luke, which he's done again. So it's only extended that lead at the top.
Absolutely, and I think the top 3 are now with us, so congratulations to you all. But firstly, before we get into the questions, please make sure you've got your voice allowed to be shared so we can all hear you loud and clear on the stream. And of course, I'll start off our race winner, Simon Palmer. Congratulations, you got pole position, you got the race win, you didn't look troubled at all, didn't get a penalty. I suppose the only thing I could say is, where's this been for the rest of the season?
Yeah, good question, really. It hasn't been there, and it's gutting, so I know it's there. And the opening race at Japan showed it. Here's showed it. It is there, but it's just been a shoddy mid-season. I feel all emotional over it. It's weird.
Well, you definitely have showed it. I mean, this is, I think, probably one of the most dominant race wins we've certainly seen. I think Dreja had a very dominant win also in Monza, and of course she's very dominant in round one as well. Also, your teammate didn't have quite as good a night as well, but at least, the consistency, as you're saying, you've had some real up and downs, particularly in the middle of the season. Consistency hasn't been there, despite having the pace to maybe challenge for the drivers. It's realistically probably not quite there for you, but I mean, at least in terms of the constructors, you and Luke, and especially you tonight, you've picked up some really good points, it looks like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously Luke and I are in a party, and I said that, say for example, I was second or I was leading, he was second, I'd let him through for the win or whatever. But obviously that didn't happen tonight. But picked up some good points for the constructors. Craig's obviously extended his lead at the top. Just looking forward to the last few races, because they're all favourite tracks. So just hope to shine again.
Yeah, and let's go back to qualifying. I believe he was the only man into the eights, and there was a very solid eight as well. I think it was a 0.6, which I mean, I think we're seeing lap times pretty similar to guys who was in the F1 league. So when you set that lap time, was that instant for you in your head that was pole position?
I had an idea it wasn't the quickest I've done. I've done a 0.3. But obviously I was definitely happy with the 0.6. As the session went on, the times were coming down a bit, but they were just getting into the low 109. So the hopes were there that I'd hold on to it, and I did.
Yeah, well, congratulations. We'll come back to you just a moment. We'll move on to the second place man, Craig, and of course you are leading the Drivers' Championship by a little bit of a distance now. Because was you aware of Luke Bailey's problems, and was you perhaps just keeping it clean, bringing home second place?
I usually race with the full track map, so I did see Luke drop off. So as soon as I saw that, I pretty much just lifted off. My fight wasn't with Simon. Congratulations on the win, mate. Brilliant. Superb drive. But it was just about trying to maximise the points tonight. So just lifting through the final chicane. Also just watching the chicane in sector 2, just watching that the car didn't bottom out. It was just about bringing the car home for the most points possible.
And you seemed like you picked up a rare penalty tonight. Was you? I mean, Dreja, I think, picked up a 3-second penalty, I believe, on the last lap. When you crossed that line in P2, was you expecting to drop down to P3 right at the end, or was you not aware of it?
Yeah, I was expecting to drop to third. I did pick up the penalty about halfway through the race. Constantly talking with the engineer just to see if the Regio had picked up a penalty, which he hadn't. So very surprised to cross the line and hold on to second.
And onto your qualifying, I believe you qualified P2, which was that a bit of a more boost for you, because even though you've had very good results of late, the qualifying's perhaps dropped off a little bit compared to particularly like Hungary. I think it was you P9, so it's like you got your qualifying form back a bit.
Yeah, I'm surprised at how the qualifying went, to be honest with you. Canada's not the strongest track for me. Been showing good pace throughout the week. However, went on today, just couldn't get under the 8s. So again, it was just trying to keep it off the wall, qualify as high as possible, and just watch out for where Luke was on track.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations to you. Of course, the championship is looking very, very kind to you with 3 rounds to go. So well done. Congratulations to you. Move on to the third place man, Dreja. I'm sure you're very happy to be back on the podium. Of course, I think you've only had 2 podiums before now. I think both of them were wins. So looks like back-to-back podiums for you now. So a bit of consistency for you. Are you happy, or are you a bit frustrated? Because I believe it was at least the last lap. I think you picked up a penalty.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Absolutely gutted, to be fair. It wasn't even on the last chicane, it was on the middle chicane. But yeah, no. To be fair, P3 was a good result. It was a really, really hard race for me. Probably the first half was a real struggle. So I'm happy with third.
Yeah, it did seem very strong towards the end. It looked like he was just closing in on Renault Craig, just lap by lap. You seemed like you had quite a good fight with Steele. Do you reckon if you perhaps could maybe negotiate past the Mercedes earlier, do you think you could have got past Craig on track?
I think so. Yeah, I had a little bit of wheel banging with Malc, I think it was, coming through, which I had to lift off quite a lot, and then he just sailed past me, and by that stage, because I think I'd got the undercut done on him first pit stop, but no, it was a really good fight. So no, it was nice to go to have a good little battle for most of the race.
Good. And of course, you said you've been a little bit ups and downs. Of course, you've had 3 podiums now. 2 of them have been wins. You've always said you felt very quick, haven't had it all your own way. But last 3 rounds, we've got Singapore, Silverstone, and Monaco. Is it hopefully these tracks that you think you can be fighting for the podium and wins again, or are these going to be tough tracks for you to finish up on?
The street circuits are going to be tough for me. They're not my favourite. Silverstone's pretty good for me, but I guess we'll just see how we go. Nothing's guaranteed, so there's a lot less carnage lately than there was at the start of the season as well. So everyone's been driving really well. So we'll see how we go.
Absolutely, of course. Well done to you. Congratulations on third place tonight. Of course, one last question back to our race winner, Simon Palmer. Of course, you're a little bit in the mix of it. Of course, you're trying to probably in the middle of sort of your own interest, and of course trying to help Luke Bailey best he can in the drivers, as well as always trying to keep on an eye on the constructors as well for the last 3 rounds. But what can we expect to see from you the last 3 rounds? Are these trucks that we'll be sort of expecting to see the same sort of level performance in terms of qualifying in the race, or is it going to be to try and help Luke?
Singapore's my favourite, so I'm looking forward to next week. To be honest, these 4 tracks are in my top 5 amongst Japan as well. So, but realistically, I'll play rear gunner to Luke if I have to. So obviously he can go for drivers, but obviously I've got to think about constructors at the same time as well. So it's just going to be working out on the day what's going to be best for both of us, really.
Absolutely, of course. Good luck to you for that. I mean, if they're in your top 3 trucks, if it's anything like tonight, then you should be well placed for them. So congratulations to all 3 of you. Really nice race from you all. Just throw it back to you, Charlie. I think Canada's one of those tracks we were saying good battles we normally get, and I don't think it really disappointed in the end.
No, as you say, we've had some really good battles. Obviously, Simon cut his way through the traffic perfectly on that middle stint and really just secured that win. So. Yeah, we've seen some good racing here tonight, and we always do. So, yeah, it's been a really enjoyable race to watch and commentate on with you as always.
Oh, thank you. And of course, we'll be back next week. Of course, Wednesdays 8 PM, always run in parallel with the F2 League. And of course, if you can't wait for more action, of course, you've got the Sunday night 9:30 PM, the Xbox League that is on twitch.tv/Invictus Racing League. Of course, come Monday night, that is Gareth and Sab's turn to present to you the F1 Equal League, Monday 8 PM here live on YouTube. And of course, Realistic Performance League, Tuesdays 8 PM, brought to you by Malc and Tim. And of course, if you want to hit us up on any of the socials, we've got Instagram at Invictus Racing League, Twitter at Invictus RL. You can find us on Facebook, and of course on our website as well. You can find a Hall of Fame statistics on all your best and favourite drivers, news, articles, interviews with drivers, photo albums, all the rest of it. And of course, if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and give a thumbs up. And of course, we hope to see you next week for round 10 in Singapore. Thank you very much. Good night.